The client was nodding enthusiastically when Williams Hale tapped the clicker, switched to the final slide, and said the sentence that detonated my entire world. I developed this campaign from scratch. My stomach free-fell. A ringing started in my ears. Their side of the table erupted in praise. My hands twitched beneath my notebook, nails digging crescents into my palms. Williams flashed me that tiny sideways smirk, like a warning and a victory lap all in one. My throat tightened so hard I could barely breathe. Did he really just erase 6 months of my life? In front of everyone. The client said they wanted the creator to present in New York next month. I felt my entire body lock. And that was where I broke internally. Every late night, every weekend, every moment I had poured into this project, all attributed to him with 4 casual words. I could not hear the rest of the meeting. I was stuck staring at Williams's shoulders as he accepted praise meant for me. Heat rose up my spine, anger so sharp it almost felt cold. My mind kept looping the same thought over and over. He stole it. He stole everything. Someone patted Williams's back. He did not look at me again. Not once. I felt tears threatening behind my eyes, but I swallowed them because this humiliation, this theft, was not going to end with me looking emotional. That would only give him more power. That was when the reality hit me like a physical blow. My team lead took credit for my work. But the client demanded to meet the real author. And I was sitting right here, invisible, erased, watching my own future being handed to someone else like a trophy he did not earn. My name is Jessica Anderson. I am 29 years old, and I work as a designer at a mid-sized creative agency in Seattle. I love my work, sometimes too much, because that love made me blind to how long Williams had been grooming everyone to believe my ideas were his. This project was supposed to change everything for me. My boss had told me this was my shot at a promotion, at recognition, at finally being seen as more than just the quiet person in the corner who got things done. But now I was sitting in a conference room watching my own future being stolen. Williams was talking about vision and strategy like he had spent months perfecting every detail. Like he had cried over color palettes at midnight. Like he had sacrificed sleep and sanity to get this right. But he had not. I had. And somehow no one seemed to notice. Started months back. Small things at first. Layout tweak here. Color palette decision there. Williams would casually drop lines like, "I was thinking we should try this direction," in meetings, even though he had never touched the drafts. It was annoying but small enough that I let it go. I told myself it was just his management style. That he was trying to sound involved. That it did not really matter as long as the work got done. I was wrong. Because every time I let one of those moments slide, Williams learned he could take more. He learned that I would not fight back. That I would smile politely and keep working while he slowly rewrote the story of who created what. I did not see it then. But looking back, those small thefts were practice runs for the big one. Management loved him. Williams was loud, charming, and fake humble in that way that makes people think someone is confident but approachable. Meanwhile, I was the quiet workhorse. The one who delivered results but never made noise about it. People started saying things like, "Williams is really leveling up the creative this quarter." Stung every time. But I did not yet understand what he was building. He was not just taking credit for my work. He was constructing a narrative. One where he was the visionary leader and I was the competent assistant who executed his brilliant ideas. By the time I realized what was happening, the story was already set in everyone's minds. And changing a story people already believe is nearly impossible. Especially when the person telling it is louder and more confident than you. When we were assigned the major client campaign, my boss pulled me aside and said, "This could finally be your break, Jessica. Show them what you can do." Felt hope. Real dangerous hope. The kind that makes you vulnerable. I poured everything into that project. Late nights until 2 in the morning. Weekends when I should have been resting. Breakdowns over font choices that seemed ridiculous until I remembered that every detail mattered. This was my shot. My one chance to prove I was more than just a good worker. That I could lead. That I could innovate. That I deserved to be seen. Williams barely attended the brainstorming sessions. He would pop in for 10 minutes, nod at my sketches, say something vague about keeping it fresh, then disappear. But I did not care. I was too focused on making the work perfect. Too focused on my future to notice he was planning to steal it. I found one of my wireframes printed on Williams's desk with his handwriting scribbled in the margins, claiming it was his early vision. I saw it when I dropped off some documents he had requested. The note said, "Initial concept, rough draft." But that wireframe was my third iteration, created 2 weeks into the project. I laughed it off at the time, thinking it was some kind of organizational mix-up. Maybe he was just keeping notes. Maybe he was trying to understand my process so he could explain it to management. I made excuses for him because I wanted to believe people were fundamentally good. That colleagues did not steal from each other. That hard work and honesty still mattered. I would later realize that moment was the first deliberate rewrite of history. The first time Williams tested whether he could erase my contribution and replace it with his name. And when I said nothing, he learned he could. In a project check-in meeting with the whole team, I was explaining my concept for the campaign's emotional arc. I was mid-sentence, describing how the visuals would build toward a sense of hope and resolution, when Williams interrupted. "Exactly what I have been saying. We need to make the user feel guided, not pushed." My face went hot. The room nodded along and someone actually said, "Thanks for clarifying that, Williams." He had not clarified anything. He had stolen my explanation and reframed it as his own insight. As if I had been fumbling toward understanding and he had graciously stepped in to make sense of it all. Williams winked at me across the table like we were in on some joke. Like this was friendly banter between colleagues. But it was not a joke. It was theft. And the worst part was that no one else seemed to notice. I went to my boss privately the next day. I tried to explain what was happening without sounding petty or paranoid. She sighed and said, "Williams is just enthusiastic. He gets excited about the work. Do not take it personally." I walked out of her office feeling invisible. Erased. Like my concerns did not matter because Williams was too valuable to question. That was the moment I understood something crucial. No one was going to save me. No one was going to notice the theft unless I made them see it. And even then they might not care. Because Williams was likable. He made management feel good. And I was quiet. Forgettable. The kind of person who does excellent work but never demands recognition for it. So from that moment on, I knew I had to protect myself. 'Cause no one else would. One morning I opened the shared project folder and something felt wrong. My early drafts were missing. The ones that showed my creative process, the evolution of ideas, the experiments that led to the final design. I searched everywhere. Then I found them in the trash folder, deleted 3 days earlier. The deletion log showed Williams's login credentials. My heart pounded in my chest. He was not just stealing credit anymore. He was erasing evidence. Destroying the proof that I had created the work he was claiming as his own. This was calculated, deliberate, strategic, and it meant he was planning something bigger. Something that required my contributions to be completely invisible. That night I barely slept. I kept thinking about what else he might delete. What other proof might disappear. And I realized I needed to act fast. Before there was nothing left to prove my case. That night I started a private archive. I forwarded every email about the project to my personal account. I downloaded every version of every file with timestamps intact. I took screenshots of shared documents showing who made which edits. I even started screen recording my work sessions so there would be video proof of me creating the designs Williams was claiming. Felt paranoid. Obsessive. But something in me sensed the storm coming. This was not revenge. This was insurance. Because I had learned the hard way that documentation beats word of mouth every single time. People forget conversations. They misremember who said what. But files do not lie. Timestamps do not lie. And if Williams was going to steal my work, I was going to make sure there was undeniable proof that he was lying. I just did not know yet how crucial that archive would become. When the client saw the preliminary prototypes, they leaned forward in their chairs with genuine interest. One of them, an older woman with sharp eyes, said, "This has a very specific emotional arc. Feels intentional. Who came up with that?" I opened my mouth to respond. But Williams stepped in front of me, literally blocking me with his body, and said, "It came to me one night. I was thinking about how people experience brands emotionally before they process them logically." The client nodded, impressed. Felt physically ill. My hands went cold. My vision narrowed. That emotional arc was mine. I had spent weeks researching psychological studies about emotional engagement. I had sketched and resketched the journey until it felt perfect. And Williams had just claimed it with a casual lie and a confident smile. The worst part was how easy it was for him. How naturally the theft came. Co-workers started treating Williams like the star of the department. I overheard two of them talking by the coffee machine. One whispered, "He is probably getting promoted after this." Another said, "Jessica is lucky to learn from him." Lucky. That word echoed in my head for days. I wanted to scream, to shake them, to show them the hundreds of hours I had poured into the work they were crediting to Williams. But I could not. Because outrage without proof looks like jealousy. Anger without evidence looks like bitterness. So instead, I smiled tightly when people congratulated Williams. I nodded when they praised his vision. And I kept collecting evidence. Every email, every file, every timestamp. Building a case so airtight that when the moment came, no one would be able to deny the truth. I just had to wait for the right moment. Williams disappeared the last 4 days before the big client review. No emails, no calls, no check-ins. I finished everything alone. At 2:17 in the morning on the final night, I stared at the polished project on my screen and whispered to myself, "This is mine. No matter what he says tomorrow." The campaign was perfect. Every element worked together seamlessly. The emotional journey was clear. The visual language was consistent and powerful. I had done this. All of it. And for a brief moment I felt proud. But underneath that pride was a cold dread. Because I knew Williams would show up tomorrow, well-rested and confident, ready to present my work as his own. And I had no idea yet whether anyone would believe me when I finally told the truth. I just knew I could not stay silent anymore. Not this time. Before walking into the conference room for the big presentation, Williams put a hand on my shoulder and said, "Just stay humble today, okay? Let the work speak for itself." Something inside me cracked. Not enough to make me act in that moment, but enough to remember that line forever. Stay humble. As if I was the one who needed that advice. As if I was the one who had been taking credit that did not belong to me. As if my silence and humility had not been the exact thing that allowed him to steal from me in the first place. I looked at his face, searching for any sign of self-awareness. Any hint that he knew what he was doing was wrong. But there was nothing. Just confidence. Just entitlement. Just the absolute certainty that he deserved credit for work he had never done. And then we were in the conference room. Williams was presenting my slides. Using my words. Explaining my concepts. The client was nodding, impressed, asking thoughtful questions. And then he said it. "I developed this campaign from scratch." My stomach dropped. The praise erupted. My hands clenched. Williams smirked. And I knew this was the moment everything had been building toward. 6 months of work. 6 months of theft. 6 months of watching someone else take credit for my creativity, my ideas, my sleepless nights. All of it culminating in this single, devastating sentence. The client asked for the creator to present in New York. Williams accepted immediately. And I sat there voiceless, watching my future walk away with someone who had never earned it. But something else was happening too. Something Williams could not see yet. The client was watching me. And their expression was starting to change from admiration to confusion. After the meeting, I went to the bathroom, locked myself in a stall, and let 2 tears fall. Only 2. Then I looked at myself in the mirror and whispered, "He has no idea what I have documented." For the first time since this nightmare began, the anger felt focused, controlled, powerful. Because Williams thought he had won. He thought the presentation was the finish line. But it was not. It was just the beginning. The client would have questions. Detailed questions about design choices, strategic decisions, and the research behind the emotional arc questions Williams could not answer. Because he had not done the work. And I had every email, every draft, every timestamp proving it. I washed my face, fixed my hair, and walked back to my desk with a strange calm settling over me. The storm was coming. And this time I was ready. A day later, the client emailed our boss. The subject line was simple: clarification needed. Inside, they wrote that Williams's explanations during a follow-up call had felt inconsistent with the emotional strategy of the campaign. They wanted to schedule another meeting to discuss the project in more depth. I felt my pulse quicken when my boss forwarded the email to the team. This was the seam. The first unraveling thread. Because Williams could fake confidence. He could fake vision. But he could not fake deep knowledge of work he had never actually done. And now the client was noticing. The carefully constructed lie was starting to crack. And once it started, there would be no way to stop it. Williams would have to either admit the truth or dig himself deeper. And I knew which one he would choose. Williams called a last-minute team meeting. His voice was too loud, too fast, as he rambled about aligning language and maintaining unified messaging for the client. His hands shook slightly as he gestured. Sweat beaded at his hairline. I realized something profound in that moment. He did not understand the project well enough to fake it. Not when someone asked detailed questions. Not when the client wanted to dig into the why behind every decision. Williams had stolen the surface. The presentation. Pretty slides. But he had never understood the foundation. The research. The psychology. The careful construction of every element. And now that foundation was about to be tested. And he was going to fail. I sat quietly in that meeting, watching him panic, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. His downfall was coming. And he had built it himself. The client reached out to me directly. A polite, carefully worded email asking if I could walk them through some details about the campaign's development process. My hands hovered over the keyboard. This was the moment everything could change. I could tell the truth. Or I could stay silent and let Williams continue the lie. Took a breath. And I replied. Professionally. Only. Agreeing to a call. When we spoke, the client asked specific questions about the emotional arc, the color psychology, the research behind the user journey. I answered every question with confidence and detail. Because I had done the work. I knew every decision, every choice, every reason. And when the call ended, the client said, "Thank you, Jessica. That was incredibly helpful. We will be in touch." I knew what that meant. They knew. Finally, someone knew the truth. My boss called me into a room with HR. The door closed. My heart pounded. They asked, "Can you show us your contribution to the campaign?" I opened my laptop, pulled up the private archive I had built over months, and watched their faces slowly drain of color as timestamps, drafts, and recordings stacked up like undeniable truth. Every email showing my ideas. Every file showing my edits. Every screen recording showing me building the designs Williams had claimed. I did not accuse Williams. I did not need to. The evidence did it for me. The HR representative took notes silently. My boss stared at the screen, her expression shifting from shock to something like guilt. Because she had dismissed my concerns. She had told me not to take it personally. And now she was seeing exactly how personally Williams had made it. By the time I closed my laptop, the room was completely silent. Williams arrived halfway through the meeting, clueless. He swaggered in with his usual confidence, asking what was going on. Then he saw the screen, saw the timestamps, saw the evidence. His face went pale. He stuttered, tried to claim he had guided the direction, that leadership was about vision, not execution. But HR calmly replied, "The client has already asked to speak with the real creator." I sat silent. Williams looked at me, betrayal in his eyes, as if I had done something wrong by protecting my own work. As if documenting my contributions was somehow a violation of trust. But I did not look away. I held his gaze. Because he had stolen from me. And now he was facing consequences. He destroyed himself by trying to explain work he had never done. By insisting he deserved credit for brilliance he had never possessed. The meeting ended with HR asking him to wait outside. He left, and I stayed, victorious without saying a word. The client formally requested that I present the campaign in New York. Management suspended Williams pending investigation. I saw him once more in the hallway. He tried to talk to me, his voice cracking. "Jessica, wait. Can we just talk about this?" I walked past him without slowing. Did not stop. Did not turn around. Did not acknowledge him. Because he was not owed the dignity he had never given me. He had erased me in that conference room without hesitation. Had stolen my work without guilt. Had smiled while doing it. And now he wanted understanding. Forgiveness. Explanation. Well, he had made his choices. And now he would live with the consequences. His voice faded behind me as I kept walking. And I felt nothing. Not anger. Not satisfaction. Just a quiet, steady certainty that I had finally stopped letting someone else define my worth. The investigation concluded quickly. Williams had a pattern. I was not the first person he had stolen from. 2 other designers came forward with similar stories once they knew they would be believed. Smaller thefts. Ideas claimed in meetings. Concepts presented as his own. A pattern of behavior that management could no longer ignore. Williams was terminated. Meanwhile, the client sent an email calling my campaign one of the most emotionally intuitive designs they had ever seen. My boss offered me the lead role Williams had been angling for. I accepted on one condition. I wanted a new team. Fresh start. People who understood that leadership meant elevating others, not erasing them. She agreed. And just like that, the job Williams had tried to steal his way into became mine. Not because I schemed. Not because I lied. But because I did the work. And I protected it. And when the truth finally came out, there was no question who deserved to lead. Standing in the New York boardroom months later, presenting confidently to the client who had believed in me, I felt something settle in my chest. Like my lungs finally had room to breathe again. Williams was not mentioned. Not by them. Not by me. He had become irrelevant. A footnote in a story that was ultimately about me finding my voice. His downfall was not my victory. My victory was knowing I had built something he could never steal. My reputation. My integrity. My future. Those things belonged to me. And no one could take them because I had protected them. If there is one lesson I carry now, it is this. Know your worth. Protect your work. Document everything. And never let someone else's arrogance define your brilliance. Because the truth always comes out. Eventually. And when it does, you want to be standing on the right side of it. With proof. With dignity. With the work that was always yours.